I didn't suspect my wife because she was distant. I suspected her because she was suddenly careful. Careful in a way that felt practiced, like someone who had learned exactly how much attention to give without giving too much. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still asked what I wanted for dinner, still texted me little updates during the day. But there was a precision to it now, like she was following a script instead of speaking naturally. Nothing excessive, nothing missing, just measured. Her name was Hannah. We'd been married 9 years, together for 12. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Denver, the kind of place where people waved but didn't really know each other, where weekends were spent at Home Depot or Costco, where life moved in predictable loops. Hannah worked in marketing for a regional outdoor brand. I ran a small but growing IT consulting firm. From the outside, our life looked stable, boring in the best way. No kids yet, by mutual agreement. Plenty of time, we'd said. Let's get established first. That phrase followed us for years. Get established first, as if life was something you unlocked after grinding long enough. The first crack appeared on a night that should have meant nothing. She came home late on a Thursday, around 10. Not unusual. She had client dinners sometimes. She walked in smiling, shoes in hand, hair slightly messy like she'd run her fingers through it too many times. She looked good, not dressed up exactly, but relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in a while. She leaned into me when she hugged me, longer than usual, and said, "Sorry, I know it's late." Dinner ran long. I smelled wine, expensive wine, and something else beneath it. Not perfume, soap. Hotel soap. It registered, but it didn't explode in my head. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even mention it. I just filed it away like you file away a strange dream you don't yet understand. Later that night, lying in bed, she fell asleep almost instantly. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the house, and felt an unease that didn't have words yet. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't anger. It was disorientation. Like the floor had shifted a few inches and my body hadn't caught up. The next few weeks were full of small inconsistencies. Her phone never left her sight anymore. Not dramatically. She didn't hide it when I walked into a room. She just always had it in her hand. Always face down when she set it on a table. Always on silent. She started charging it on her side of the bed instead of the nightstand between us. When I asked casually why, she said the cord worked better there. She began taking more solo walks in the evenings. Said it helped her clear her head. I encouraged it. I thought it was healthy. She'd been stressed, she said. Deadlines, pressure. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. Then came the new playlists. She used to listen to podcasts on her commute. True crime, business stuff. Suddenly it was music again. Playlists with names like Late Drive and Reset and Feels Like Summer, even though it was October. Songs about starting over, about secrecy, about desire. I noticed because she'd hummed them absent-mindedly while cooking, a small smile on her face that vanished the moment she noticed me watching. The moment I knew for sure didn't come from her phone. It came from her calendar. I was syncing a shared Google Calendar for a trip we were planning to Santa Fe. Flights, hotel, rental car. I clicked into her work calendar to avoid overlap and saw something odd. Repeating blocks of time labeled simply off-site every Tuesday afternoon. Same hours, same vague label. For months. Hannah hated vague labels. She color-coded everything. Detailed notes, locations, contacts. Off-site meant nothing, and that was exactly why it stood out. I asked her about it that night while we were eating dinner. Kept my tone light. "What's the off-site thing on Tuesdays?" She didn't hesitate. "Internal meetings," she said. "Strategy stuff. Easier to focus outside the office." "Where?" I asked. She shrugged. "Different places." "Depends." The fork paused halfway to her mouth for half a second. Barely noticeable. But I noticed. I didn't push. That night after she went to bed, I sat in the living room with my laptop open and did something I'd never done before in our marriage. I checked our bank statements in detail. Not just balances. Line by line. There it was. A boutique hotel downtown. Every Tuesday. Same amount. Same time. Charged to her card. Room service sometimes. Drinks sometimes. Always mid-afternoon to early evening. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt oddly calm, like my body had been preparing for this moment without telling me. I didn't confront her, not because I was scared, because I was curious. I wanted to know how far this went, how long, how deep. I wanted to know who she became when she thought I wasn't looking. Confrontation would end the performance, and I wasn't ready for the show to stop. So I watched. I noticed how she dressed on Tuesdays. Not overtly sexy, intentional, clean lines, effortless. The kind of outfit designed to look like it took no effort at all. I noticed how she shaved her legs the night before, how she lingered in the mirror a little longer those mornings, how she checked her phone more frequently between noon and 3. I noticed how she came home those nights, calm, light, almost a refreshed. That hurt more than I expected. One Tuesday, I left work early. I didn't follow her right away. I didn't want to look like some desperate man tailing his wife. I just drove downtown and parked a block away from the hotel listed on the charges, sat in my car, waited. At 3:12 p.m., she arrived. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look like someone sneaking around. She walked inside confidently, like she belonged there, like this was routine. 10 minutes later, another car pulled in. A dark gray SUV. He got out and looked around once, quickly, then headed inside. I didn't recognize him. I sat there for almost an hour staring at the hotel entrance, feeling something hollow open in my chest. Not rage, not sadness. A quiet grief, like mourning something that had already died. I took photos, not of them together, just timestamps, proof of presence, evidence that matched the charges, enough to tell the truth without ever raising my voice. Then I drove home. When Hannah came back that night, she kissed me and asked how my day was. I answered honestly. It had been productive, busy, fine. She smiled and leaned her head on my shoulder. I realized then that the woman I was standing next to didn't know me anymore. And I didn't know her. We were strangers, sharing a mortgage and a history. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to compete with a man who didn't have to deal with real life. I was going to leave the marriage the way she'd left it already. Quietly, completely, and on my terms. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not angrily, not dramatically, calmly, like a man planning a move, not a war. I told him everything. And as he listened, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. I didn't change overnight. That's the part people get wrong when they imagine this kind of story. They think there's a switch, a moment where rage takes over and everything becomes sharp and decisive. That wasn't me. I still woke up next to her, still made coffee, still talked about trivial things like groceries and weekend plans. On the surface, nothing changed. Underneath, everything did. The lawyer's name was Richard. Late 40s, calm voice. The kind of man who didn't waste words. He asked questions and waited for real answers, not emotional ones. When I finished explaining, he didn't say, "I'm sorry this is happening." He said, "Okay, here's how we do this without blowing your life up." That sentence alone was worth the consultation fee. Colorado was a no-fault state, which meant infidelity wouldn't give me some dramatic legal advantage. But it still mattered. It mattered for leverage, for negotiation, for understanding who I was dealing with. Richard explained separation timelines, asset division, how to protect my business, how to prepare for the moment she realized she'd lost control of the narrative. He warned me about something that stuck with me. The most dangerous phase isn't when they're cheating, it's when they realize you're not reacting the way they expected. I went home that day and looked at Hannah differently, not with hatred, with clarity. She thought she was managing two lives. In reality, she was only managing one. I was already building another. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and redirected my business income there. I didn't drain joint accounts. I didn't do anything that would look like panic or revenge, just quiet redirection. I updated passwords. I backed up important documents. I took photos of the house, the furniture, my office equipment, the things I'd purchased through my business. I started keeping records the way I kept client logs at work. Neutral, factual, thorough. At home, Hannah became more confident. That was the strangest part. As the weeks passed, her behavior shifted from cautious to comfortable. She stopped hiding as carefully. Her phone stayed on silent, but she'd smile openly at messages now. She started criticizing me more. Small things, my tone, my work hours, the way I loaded the dishwasher. It was subtle, but consistent. She was rewriting history in real time, laying the groundwork for why she was unhappy. One night she said, "Do you ever feel like we've just grown apart?" I looked at her across the dinner table. Her expression was earnest, almost rehearsed, like she was testing the line before using it elsewhere. I shrugged. "Sometimes people change," I said. She nodded slowly, like that confirmed something for her. Like she was relieved I hadn't fought the idea. That's when I understood something important. She didn't want out because she'd found someone better. She wanted out because she wanted permission. Permission to leave without being the villain in her own story. And if I didn't give it to her, she'd take it anyway. The man from the hotel showed up more frequently after that. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew his routine. Tuesdays were theirs, sometimes Thursdays, always downtown, always the same hotel. I never followed them again. I didn't need to. I already had enough proof. Following would have been about pain shopping, and I was done hurting myself for information I already had. Instead, I focused on my exit. I arranged for a short-term rental across town under the guise of needing space for a big project. I didn't tell Hannah. I didn't need to yet. I just made sure it existed. A clean, empty place with no memories attached. Somewhere I could land without chaos. The moment came sooner than I expected. It was a Sunday morning. Quiet, snow just starting to fall, light and slow. Hannah was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I wasn't looking for it. I really wasn't. But the screen lit up with a name this time, not an initial. Evan. The message preview read, "Can't wait until Tuesday. Miss you already." Something inside me finally went still. I picked up the phone. Her passcode hadn't changed. I didn't read everything. I didn't need to. The thread told the whole story in fragments, months long, hotel jokes, complaints about me framed as concern, reassurances that she'd handle things soon. A photo of him I didn't recognize, smiling in a way that made my jaw tighten. A photo of her I'd never seen, taken in a mirror that wasn't ours. I took screenshots, time-stamped, clean. Then I put the phone back exactly where it had been and went downstairs. By the time she came down, wrapped in a towel, hair damp, I was making coffee. She smiled at me. "Morning." "Morning," I said. That was the moment I stopped feeling like I was lying to her. She was the one living a lie. I was just no longer participating. That afternoon, I met Richard again. He looked at the screenshots, nodded once, and said, "Okay, we're ready." We picked a date. Not impulsive. Strategic. A Tuesday. The irony wasn't lost on me. That Tuesday morning, Hannah dressed carefully. I noticed the outfit, the subtle makeup, the extra attention to her hair. She kissed me goodbye and said she might be late. I told her to drive safe. As soon as her car left the driveway, I moved. I packed only what mattered. Documents, clothes, personal items, my work equipment, things that couldn't be replaced. I left the rest untouched. No smashed frames, no notes, no drama. The locksmith arrived at noon. I stood there watching the locks change, listening to the soft, mechanical clicks that sounded like punctuation marks at the end of a very long sentence. When he was done, I paid him, thanked him, and watched him leave. Then I placed an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside were copies of the separation paperwork, my lawyer's contact information, and a short note. Not emotional, not accusatory, just clear. "I know about Evan. I'm done. Contact my lawyer." That was it. At 6:47 p.m., my phone started ringing. I didn't answer. The doorbell camera lit up at 7:12. Hannah stood on the porch in heels she didn't wear for me anymore. Confusion all over her face. She tried her key. Once. Twice. Her confusion turned to irritation. Then anger. She knocked. Hard. I watched from my rental apartment across town, sitting on the edge of an unfamiliar bed. My heart steady. Her calls escalated. Voicemails, texts, rage, tears, accusations, threats. She cycled through every emotion like she was trying on outfits, seeing which one would make me open the door. Nothing worked. By midnight, the messages stopped. The next day, the victim tour began. Friends called. Her sister, a mutual coworker. Everyone wanted to know what happened. Everyone had heard her version already, that I'd blindsided her, that I'd locked her out without warning, that she was confused and hurt. I said nothing. Richard handled communication, calm emails, legal language, no insults, no back and forth, just boundaries. That silence did something to Hannah. It unbalanced her. She wasn't used to not being able to shape the narrative. She wasn't used to consequences arriving without an argument, without a chance to cry her way back into control. A week later, her lawyer reached out. They wanted to talk. We did, through attorneys. She wanted the house. She wanted support. She wanted time to process. Richard countered with facts, financial records, evidence of infidelity, documentation showing I'd planned the separation responsibly, proof that I wasn't abandoning her. I was leaving a marriage she'd already left. The tone shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't about feelings. It was about minimizing damage. That's when Evan disappeared from her messages. I know because she texted me one last time directly. He's not who you think he is. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying with my first words to her in weeks. He's exactly who I think he is. And so are you. I blocked her number immediately after. The divorce took months. Paperwork, negotiations, mediation sessions where she alternated between cold professionalism and emotional breakdowns. I stayed consistent, polite, distant, unmoved. When it was finalized, there was no relief, just quiet, a deep, settling quiet. I sold the house, bought a smaller place closer to the mountains, focused on my business, grew it faster than I had in years. Without the emotional drain, decisions came easier, risks felt clearer. Success wasn't explosive, it was steady, real. A year later, I ran into Hannah by accident. Grocery store, same aisle, same fluorescent lights. She looked older, not in years, in energy, tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "How are you?" she asked. "Good," I said, and meant it. She hesitated. "I heard your business is doing really well." "It is." Another pause. "I didn't think it would end like that." I nodded. Neither did I. She looked like she wanted to say more. An apology, an explanation, a confession. Something that might rewrite the ending in her head. I didn't give her the chance. I wished her well and walked away. That was my revenge. Not exposure, not shouting, not humiliation. Just refusing to carry her choices any longer.